Hello and welcome to this video. This video is meant as a little tutorial for newbies to the lock sports hobby. So for people who are new to lock picking or just interested in how lock picking actually works. I will just cover the very basics of how to pick open a lock. And I decided to make this video because I've improved my recently made lock and pin simulator, and I will use this as visual aid to make it more clear what actually happens when you pick a lock. So let's go back to the lock. What do you need when you pick open a lock? Of course, you need to have the lock, and you need to have tools. So this is a pick. That's one of the tools you need to have, because this enables you to manipulate the pins in the lock. So this is, for example, a Sparrow's shallow hook. Looks like this, and hooks come in very different variations, different thicknesses, different shapes here at the end, and of course from many different companies. And beside the pick you need to have tension wrenches, and there are typically two types of tension wrenches. One is for accessing for tensioning at this end of the keyway, and the other one, this is a Peterson pry bar, is used to tension the core or the plug here at that side of the keyway. And when you look at when you watch picking videos, normally they say top of the keyway and bottom of the keyway, and they have oriented the lock like this. And this is a little bit strange for me because I'm from Germany and we are used to have locks mounted to the doors like that. But this is just a difference on how locks are mounted to doors in different countries, because also you have here a different lock. It's a Ruku, and you can see it's meant to be mounted on a door like that, and the keyway is just upside down, or it's just oriented at 180 degree. So when you hear top of the keyway, they mean the pin side, and bottom of the keyway is the opposite side. So I don't want to use these terms. I just say pin side or opposite side, or just say nothing. Alright, so now let's pick this lock. And picking a lock actually works in the following way. You insert the tension wrench, you apply tension to the plug, and you use your pick in order to manipulate the pins. So you will find that the pins are springy when you apply no tension. And I forgot to say that this is a 5-pin pin tumbler lock, a classic model, and I think this is made from Abus, and it's not the newest one, and it's very easy to pick. So you apply tension and you go in with your pick. First the pins are springy and you apply tension, and you should then feel some pins binding, or one pin binding first, and this pin you try to pick, you try to set to the shear line. But we'll go into the details just in a moment. But now let's pick it. So search for the first pin. Try to set it. And you're in. So lock is picked open, and as I said, this was an easy one because it's not made with high precision. We have only standard pins, and the lock is not very new. So let's open up the lock, let's disassemble it and look inside. Take the different items outside the lock, and then discuss what actually happens when you pick a lock. Alright, hold on. So what you need to do in order to open a lock is you need to make sure that the plug, and this is this object here can be moved outside the housing. And for Euro cylinders, there is a groove here at the end, and a clip is placed in this groove, so that it prevents the plug from being pulled outside, and this clip needs to be removed. And sometimes this can be a very exhausting exercise, so that's why I just did it before. Alright, so when you now want to pull out the plug, you need to turn it, of course, because now it's locked. Either you have picked it or you use the key. You turn it a little bit and make sure that nothing at the end here, at this area here, will cause the pins to stuck. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. So what we have here is the plug with the key pins. And those key pins have different length according to the bidding of the key. So if you have a deep cut, like here, you have a very long key pin, and if you have a shallow cut, like there, or like here, especially like here, you have a smaller key pin. Alright, so let's move on and remove the driver pins. Oops, just jumped out. So I will dump out the spring as well. So here you see the Bible of the lock. This is this part, and the Bible has also chambers, and in those chambers we have the spring and the driver pin. And all together, the spring, the driver pin and the key pin, they build up the pin stack. And when you pick a lock or when you insert the key, you need to make sure that here in between is the shear line. So let's reassemble stack number 1. And you can imagine if the plug is in the housing, that it cannot be turned because it's blocked with the driver pin here at this area. So this is the shear line, and if no key is inserted, the plug cannot turn because it's blocked by the driver pin. Now let's stick in the right key. You see the shear line is clear, it's free, and you can turn the plug. If you have the wrong key, maybe like this, you see that the key pin looks outside and also will block the shear line. So this is how the right key opens the lock. So now how does it work to pick a lock? To pick a lock is actually possible because a lock is not made with 100% precision. So for example, these holes here are not perfectly aligned straight. So you cannot see this with your eyes, but because of manufacturing processes, these holes are a little bit off, left or right. And of course, as said, you cannot see this, but you can feel it. Now let's put in one driver pin again and another driver pin. So now we have two driver pins, and now when you turn the plug a little bit without the key but with the tension wrench, you will feel that one pin stack starts binding. So let's assume it's the last pin stack. So the screwdriver now is the simulates the holes of the Bible, and now the first pin binds, and you feel that with your pick that this pin now binds, and you can set it. You can use your pick, and you can set it. So now it's set to the shear line. And now if you turn a little bit, or if you apply the constant pressure, you will feel that now this pin will bind. And you can also set it to the shear line. And so you work all through the pins, and finally all your pins look like this, and you can turn the lock, or you can turn the plug. The lock opens. So let me reassemble the lock with only 2 pins, and I will demonstrate this to you. So the first two key pins are in the plug, and I have inserted 2 springs in the holes of the Bible. And now I will use my follower to insert the driver pins as well. So grab the pin, and it's quite easy because you only have to stick it in a little bit, move your follower against it so it will hold the pin in place, and then push down the pin and move the follower on top of the pin. So here we are done, and the first 2 chambers are filled. Now again, take the plug and look for a good place to move it through the hole of the housing, and hope the best. And here we are. Now you can turn it, and now when you pull out the key, make sure to hold the plug, otherwise the plug will come out again and all the parts will jump around because we have not yet attached the clip. So now it's locked up with only 2 pins. Alright, so now without any tension on the plug, you can probably hear, let me take a different tool or take my knife. You can hear 2 clicks, that means both pins are springy. Now I apply tension. So the first pin is still springy, but the second pin not, so I cannot even push down my knife. So as I said, there is not 100% precision in those locks. I mean, the better they are made, the more expensive they are, and the more difficult it is to pick them. So this lock is not such a high precision lock, and it's very good for demonstration. So I apply tension, and I know that pin 2 is binding, so I try to set it. Okay, you heard that click, so I think it is set, and now pin 1 is binding. And when I set it, lock opens. So these are the basics of lock picking. Basically, you can pick open a lock because there are tolerances. The holes are not really aligned at 100% straight along this line. The pins have a little bit different diameters and also the holes. So when you turn the plug with your tension wrench, you will feel one pin stack binding first. Then you try to pick it until it clears the shear line. This will give you some kind of feedback, so you might be able to feel it on the tension wrench so that the plug turns a little bit, or you might be able to hear it by a click, or you feel it on your pick that the pin is set to the correct height. Well, and then you continue with the next stack, and so on and so forth until the lock is open. And this is only the basic. Of course, there are multiple attributes of a lock that can make it harder to pick, but this maybe I will cover in another video. But now let's demonstrate picking of a pin stack with the pin and lock simulator. So this is my model of a pin stack in a pin tumbler lock with all the relevant parts. The white object is the plug, then we have the housing with the chamber and the Bible. It contains the spring and the driver pin, this is the red bit, and the green one is the key pin. We also have our picking tools, so this is the actual pick to manipulate the pins, and we have the tension wrench. Alright, so if you just leave the lock alone and don't apply any tension here to the plug, you will find that the pin stack is springy, so when you push down the pins, they will come up again automatically. So now let's assume that this pin stack is the one that binds currently. So when you apply a little bit of tension here, you will find that you now cannot push down the pins with the same amount of force. So you have to push them a little bit harder, and that's because when you turn the plug, when you apply tension to the plug, the driver pin will get in contact with this edge here of the plug and with that edge here of the chamber in the Bible. So and the more tension you apply, the more force is effective here, and well, the harder you need to pick the pins in order to make them move. So now again, let's try to pick this chamber. So let's try to pick this stack. Apply a little bit of tension here and gently push down the pins, and once they reach the shear line, the lock will open, or another pin stack will start binding. So that's basically how it works when you pick a lock, or how it should work when you pick a lock. Of course, things can go wrong. So if you apply too less tension, not enough tension, you will not feel. So you will not feel that the pin stack is actually the one that would bind. Or you apply too much tension and you don't feel anything, so you cannot identify the one that would bind first. Or if you push too hard the pins, you will overset the stack, and then the green one, the key pin, will block the shear line. And this situation is not so nice, because now you are done with picking actually. Because it doesn't matter what you do with all the other stacks. If the key pin blocks the shear line, you cannot heal the situation by any kind of picking procedure. You need to first identify that you have overset that pin or that stack, and then you need to gently release tension so that only this stack would return to to the neutral position and hope that all the other pins that were set previously will stay in place. Okay, so these are just a few examples of what can go wrong. Of course, picking a lock is much more complicated because of the different pins that exist and the different keyways that might prevent you from nicely accessing the pins and all kinds of other weird stuff that exists that makes picking a lock a challenge and great fun at the end. So there is actually it's a really great feeling when you pick a lock and you really work hard on that, and the first time it opens, that's a really great feeling, I can tell you. So yeah, these are the very basics of lock picking. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And well, what else remains to say? Of course, happy picking and bye bye.